to people. I like to talk to people and stuff. It was really a cool childhood growing up. I was born to two parents. My dad, who was Kriticos Pandelis Watson II, and my mom, Doreen William Shangarai. And yeah, they're from Tanzania. My mom's from Tanzania, my dad's Zambian and Greek, which is why my name is Kriticos. Next slide. Okay, so Bemba and Chagga. My dad is Bemba. He is from the tribe of Bemba Kingdom, which is in Zambia. And the reason I have him standing in that picture is because he was the spokesperson for the emperor of the Bemba Kingdom, which is the man standing right next to him. And yeah, basically the king is not allowed to do public speaking, but my dad was the spokesperson for the king. And that was a huge role, and yeah, growing up around that was really big. He's wearing the crown, which is the chief crown, which is, yeah, it's really dope. And that's my mom. She's really awesome. she's Chagga from the mountain of Kilimanjaro. One thing you need to know about the Chaggas is that they're known for being money makers. They're known for being like really hustlers. And I'm going to talk about that later on, but my mom is definitely a Chagga because she's a good girl. Yeah, okay, so more about my childhood. I grew up in Zambia until I was 8 years old, and then I moved to Belgium. My dad was a diplomat, and he had a job in Brussels, and so we all moved in 2004. I came here, I learned French, so I started to speak in French. I always loved reading, so reading was really my biggest passion. I started reading at the young age of like 3 years old, and I had a really big vocabulary thanks to that. But most people thought I was boring because I always read my books, even at parties and like different events, birthday parties and stuff. I always just sit in the corner of my book. And yeah, I loved singing. I loved doing different things that like just demanded my creativity. And when I came to Belgium, that's when I was confronted with the fact that I was black. Because like growing up in Zambia, you don't really have black or white as much as here. So yeah, I just had to confront that and like, I guess learn that, but then I had my roots knowing that I was Bemba and Chagga. Yeah, I grew up in a family of 5. These are 3 of my brothers. 2 of my brothers, sorry. I'm the one standing in the middle. My dad took this picture in Zambia, and I just took this picture because I was really different than my brothers. Even in the household, I was different growing up. And I just had to find my identity in the household, and finding my identity in the household and being comfortable with it in the household allowed me to be comfortable with it in the outside world, because you know, if I'm different from my brothers and I can coexist with them, there's no problem with me being different in the real world, you know? Yeah. And so to talk more about my dad, he's the coolest guy ever. His name's Kriticos as well, so I'm named after, we're both named after his granddad, and he is the Greek person who is named Kriticos. Yeah, in 2014, I moved to Sierra Leone with my dad, and we lived together for quite some time, for a year in Sierra Leone, and it was during the Ebola crisis. So we got evacuated, and you know, it was really rough. But that time that I spent in Sierra Leone with my dad, he went from being my dad to my best friend. Like he really became like this, because it was just me and him in the country. And yeah, it was really amazing. It was only until 2016 that my dad died. And I lost my best friend, my hero and everything, and it was really confronting. It was a huge moment in my life because I realized that, you know, life is not promised to any of us. It's promised, death is the only thing that is promised though. You know, even somebody that I could deem as my hero, somebody that I share a name with, somebody that, you know, is my best friend and everything can still die, which I didn't think was even possible for him, you know? And so yeah, I came to terms with that, and that really changed my whole perspective. In 2016, 2 months after my dad died, I was struck by grief and anger when I saw Alton Sterling and Fernando Castel got killed by police in America. And so I started posting about it online. I found different people that were online that also enraged about it. And so we basically came together and co-organized the first ever Black Lives Matter protest in Belgium, which was a huge deal. I had just turned 20, my dad just died, but I really felt that it was dear to me to actually do this and speak up for these people that lost their father and whoever other people might have lost their father to murder. And yeah, the speech was really good. The event was really good. That's where I met GM and my guy over here, Paul Henri. And yeah, it was really cool. Now here we are. Life is amazing. But yeah, the speech was so well that Amnesty International contacted me and asked me to become the spokesperson for the campaign against racial profiling. And then they invited me to the Federal Parliament of Belgium, Federal Parliament of Belgium, where we basically proposed different laws to the government to end discrimination in some ways. And yeah, so that's a picture of me. The first one I was 20, the second one I was 21. It's 1 year apart, but yeah, it's huge. Yeah, that's the public speaking.
What a glow up.
Yeah, next slide, please. And so yeah, at the same time, 2017, my mom saw that I was grieving my dad. I had started smoking weed. Not very proud of that, but I started smoking weed, and my mom caught me smoking weed. And instead of like, being angry at me and stuff, she basically saw that I always was interested in music. And so what she did was she took one of my songs, which I didn't have any plans of releasing, I had not released any songs at that time, and she sent it to radio stations. And she sent a song to Eminem, and Eminem called me, very randomly. I didn't even know who it was. They called me, hey, is this Kriticos? I'm like, yeah, who is this? They're like, oh, it's Eminem, Brahim, I think it was. We really like your song, Go To, you mind coming to perform at the radio? And I was like, okay, this is so weird. Anyway, I ended up performing on the radio, and my career just started taking off by accident. It was all thanks to my mom. Then my mom, took me under her wing, brought me to Tanzania. She lives in Tanzania, by the way. Brought me to Tanzania and in Kenya, and we started recording music. I started recording and performing and stuff. And it started getting really popular. I went on TV shows, I was in the newspapers. It was really, really sick. So I started making a name for myself in Kenya and Tanzania, thanks to my mom. And then I'd come back to Belgium and I'd go to school and do groceries like a normal person. But every time I go to Kenya and stuff, people would stop me in the streets for pictures, and it was really strange. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out because, as I said, Chaggas are hustlers and moneymakers, and my mom really just did that for me. And speaking of Chaggas, every time I was in Tanzania doing performances and stuff, I always made time to go see my grandma who lives in Moshi. And every time I'd go see my grandma, we'd talk, we'd have conversations. And every time we had conversations, I'd put my phone down on the table, on that table right there. and I'd record the conversations. So I'd ask them life questions, like, what do you think about friendship? How important is it to this? Just life questions. And then I asked her, I was like, it feels like I'm a fraud to be doing music and coming here to Tanzania to do music while in Belgium. And I feel fraudulent, and so she basically told me it doesn't matter where you're born, it doesn't matter where you end up. You can be born in Tanzania and not live in Tanzania, and only God knows why. And I recorded that and ended up putting that into my first EP, which is Bemba Chagga, and that's how the EP starts. But that's a really important conversation that I had with her, and it represents a lot. And in that conversation as well, she told me about the history of Chagga people, and the history of the Chagga people in connection with the Kilimanjaro, which is the mountain. The Kilimanjaro, the biggest mountain in Tanzania, in Africa, sorry. And on my way back from Tanzania to Belgium, I was sat next to two people, an Indian man who was in his 40s, and a Canadian lady. And they were flying next to the Kilimanjaro. The pilot was like, yo, look, it's Kilimanjaro on the left. So all looking at the Kilimanjaro. And the two people next to me are like, yo, we climbed that. And I'm like, you climbed that? It's crazy, because they're regular looking people. And the Indian was apparently searching for himself in Tanzania, and he found himself climbing Kilimanjaro. He really wanted to find the meaning of life or something. He had a midlife crisis. And the Canadian lady was a teacher. And she was like, yeah, before I travel, I'd like to do this before I travel, or whatever. But it's beautiful. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm Chagga, and you guys are climbing this mountain that belongs to my people, quote unquote, and I'm not even doing it. So when I saw that, I decided that I would make it my mission to climb Mount Kilimanjaro before 2020. I had no idea what was going to happen in 2020. I just wanted to climb it before 2020. And I climbed it in 2019. That's a picture of me watching the sunrise at the top of the mountain, which is a huge moment for me. But what I didn't mention earlier is that my grandma basically told me that the Kilimanjaro, what the Chagga people would do is they climb the Kilimanjaro to talk to God. And when they go to talk to God in the Kilimanjaro, their prayers are all answered. All their prayers will be answered. And I was like, all right, that's a folklore, whatever. But I ended up talking to God, praying or writing stuff. And I'd always have ideas coming to me. It takes 4 days to climb the Kilimanjaro. It's hiking, I kept on having ideas, and I wrote stuff down, which we're gonna talk about later. But when I came back from the Kilimanjaro, I was more in tune with myself because I walked in the footsteps of my ancestors. I knew my history as a Bemba because my dad was a chief and I'd go to the ceremonies and see him do this stuff, but I didn't know my history as a Chagga until I climbed the mountain. And so when I came back, I made this EP called Bemba Chagga, which is literally, my tribes. I directed the photo, which I wanted to go for like a Renaissance king that's getting his haircut, so it's still black, yes. And yeah, I got Raya to shoot it for me, and yeah, we got like materials and stuff. I got my barber to cut my hair while we were shooting the picture. And yeah, then I record, after this video is when I recorded the song Bemba Chagga. So I had the photo, I had the EP ready, and like the week before the EP dropped, I was like, I have to record the intro for this. Because this picture, you can't just have a picture and no intro to this EP. So I recorded Bemba Chagga, and then I had my conversation from my grandma came back to me. I put it at the beginning of the song. And there you go, that was Bemba Chagga. So I was really in tune with myself after climbing the mountain. Next. And then on the mountain, yes. On the mountain, I had a dream that came to me of I always wanted to start a book club, but people didn't read books. And while I was climbing the mountain, I literally had a dream of people sitting around a table in a circle with cards that have quotes from books. And I came up with this concept, which is basically this is the book club. It's very simple. It's a book. I mean, it's a card with the quote from the book, and at the bottom of the card is a question that talks about a larger discussion. And as crazy as it sounds, that came to me in a dream while I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And I really believe that it was God like speaking to me. And I feel like it's part of my life purpose to follow that dream, right? Yeah, next slide. That is a note that I wrote while I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. I really wanted to work at Daily Paper. It's my favorite brand. And yeah, while climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I just had this idea of gifting Daily Paper. I wrote it in the notes, but I didn't like show you the whole thing. But I made this idea of giving a gift that shows my marketing skills to the Daily Paper people, and somehow they'll notice me and say, oh, you should come work with us and do your internship here. And I didn't know how it would happen. I just had this idea and I thought it would be cool to do. And when I came back from the mountain, I came to a friend's store called Knits and Treats. And when I went there, a friend of mine, you know, the people that work there asked me where I'm from, because I'm black, you know, they ask me, where are you from, and that. And they have Daily Paper. So I said I'm from Zambia, they had Daily Paper. It's like, yo, we got a jacket in the back from Daily Paper that commemorates Zambia. And I'm like, stop, like, nobody knows Zambia. I feel like some people here don't even know what Zambia is. Do you guys know what Zambia is? Yeah? Okay. But literally nobody talks about Zambia in multimedia. It's very rare. So when I heard that, I didn't believe him. Until he showed me the jacket and it really showed like the patch of Zambia on it and everything. And apparently it was commemorating a Zambian person in 1964 that wanted to go to the moon. And he was like, yeah, we're gonna beat USA and Russia to the moon. And he was Zambian, so basically Daily Paper honored him. And so I made a post on the left there of the jacket, and I took a picture of the jacket. I made a post like in the captions. I was like, yeah, Daily Paper made this jacket. It talks about this. It's commemorating this guy. And the founder, Abdelrahman, saw it. He's the Moroccan founder. There's three people. There's a Ghanaian, Somalian, and Moroccan. The Moroccan shared it on his story, and at the end, I was like, yo, thank you so much for making this jacket. Like, it means so much to me. And he was like, yeah, bro, it's my pleasure. And yeah, fast forward to beginning of 2020, I had to find an internship. And so I DM'd him, because I was in his DM already. I DM'd him and I was like, yo, I need a marketing internship. I'd love to work at Daily Paper. And he's like, yeah, I've seen what you've done. I see the passion that you have for this company. Here's the email of the head of marketing. Send her email. You've got the internship. I didn't have to send my CV. It sounds unreal. Anyway, I ended up working at Daily Paper for 2021, and I still work with them sometimes, but I'm no longer living in Amsterdam. Yeah, we'll go to the next slide. But while I was working at Daily Paper and living in Amsterdam, I met this guy named Gunny Ford, who owns a bookstore. He's a Rwandese man. He's a refugee from the genocide in Rwanda. He came to Amsterdam and studied and everything, his whole family. He became a personal banker, and at one point, he stopped banking and started becoming a publisher, and he owns this really luxurious, beautiful bookstore in Amsterdam. So I found the bookstore on Instagram. I DM'd him. I was like, hey, I'd love to do a book club in your store because I already have the concept. And he was like, yeah, sure. Like, I love what you've done, because I explained the concept to him. I love what you've done. Come over. Let's talk about it. And so we basically planned on making a session together, which is the next slide. And that's the first time I had a book club outside of Belgium. And that's his bookstore, which is really freaking dope. And it's black owned. Like I don't know, that's so cool to me. But yeah, we had a book club, and it was really, really cool. A lot of people saw it because there's only that one picture. We can film it. The book club is like it's a really intimate conversation. Some people here have come to the book club, and it's a very intimate conversation. It's one of those moments that you don't want to take your phone and take a picture. And so we only have one picture, and that picture we posted online, and a lot of people in Amsterdam, yo, I need to come to it. When's the next one? So basically, we created demand, and I didn't have money on my mind for this book. I just wanted to talk to people about books, and yeah, before he owns this stuff, he understands how this works, and I met a lot of other people that were there at that book club that understand the concept of making things make money. And so they're like, yo, you should do this here and charge this much. You should go here, da da da. And so the people that were actually at that table ended up connecting me to so many other companies, which will be on the next slide. I ended up doing a book club at Daily Paper, which I worked there. So one of my colleagues said, yo, we should do a book club here. And I did it, and it was really cool. The Circle Club, which is a members club for entrepreneurs and innovators in Amsterdam. And I also did a book club at Soho House in Amsterdam, which is really dope. I did 2 book clubs at Soho House. And we've got a partnership there. But the Circle Club is full of entrepreneurs and innovators. And at the Circle Club, just so happened to be somebody that worked at Netflix, who was the head of PR at Netflix. And so she experienced the book club, and she was like, I need you to do this at my company. And I was like, what company is it? Oh, Netflix. Okay, let's do it. And so I did a book club for Netflix, and that was in the realm of consulting. So we did basically consulting for their PR team, which of course demands money. And so that was the moment where I made the book club into a business officially. My first client was Netflix, which is it's crazy to say. Go to the next slide. After I finished my time in Amsterdam, I came back to Belgium and I started pitching it to different places in Belgium and saying, I've got this idea, I'd love to do a book club here. This is like images of how it's worked in Amsterdam, and I'd like to continue it here. Mint is one of the partners that liked the idea. It's a library based in Center of Boston. And Kideo also liked the idea because they're trying to do a campaign to make the students read more. Except you don't have to read to go to the book club, but at the end of the book club, you want to read the book because you have a conversation with it. And yeah, so then I started basically balancing between both worlds. It's really difficult. I just gotta tell you, it's fucking difficult to do both because I'm a one-man team, and I'm still balancing it, but it's going pretty well. I got invited by TEDx to do it in there, and most recently I did a book club in Berlin, and I united a bunch of black people to talk about love, and I think that's really dope. And yeah, it's all women, which is really cool as well. And yeah, now that's high demand in Berlin. That one was free, so I paid for everything. I paid for my flight to go there, I paid for everything. But it was all literally the concept of having this conversation, and when I was there, I realized that the demand was so high. Black people need to talk about love and talk about things that don't relate to racism. And in Berlin, they really need to talk about that shit, because it's really rough over there. So there's a high demand, and last week was the first time that there was a book club that I didn't host. And basically the girl that's sitting on the floor there, she found me on TikTok. It's so random. She found me on TikTok and said, you should come to Berlin and do a book club here. We talked, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. I booked the flight, went there. I was broke as hell, but I still made it happen. And so she now hosts book clubs in Berlin when I can't do it. And hopefully I'll be able to do that in the future with other people. Yeah. And so yeah, I just want to make this formula of how I was able to sell this idea. And so yeah, I had the dream. I literally had the dream of this concept. And then I wrote it. I wrote it on a PowerPoint and made it like tangible and understandable by anybody. And then I made a concept, which is the book club concept, which is what I send to clients in the future when I try to make this book club take spaces, which I did in Belgium, I do in Amsterdam, and in other countries I'm going to go to. And actualize it by actually reaching out to people and saying, let's do a book club, which is what GM did here. Let's round of applause for GM, man. This is really sick. But yeah, this is really sick. You can literally make anything happen, even if it's a dream. You can make it happen. Just like write it down, make sure somebody believes in it. You just need one person to believe in it. You managed to get this whole team to believe in it, and here we are. Yeah, and the next slide is just the end. It started with Junior, and now my dad is gone, and I really came into myself as Kriticos in my own right, not Kriticos Junior, but Kriticos. And yeah, for now I'm just working on keeping the book club established. I do music and all these other things, but the book club is really something I'm trying to keep going. I'll soon host a book club in Finland and different Scandinavian countries, which is really dope. There's more book clubs in Amsterdam to come, and hopefully I'll try to get more in Belgium as well. But yeah, I'm really trying to scale it. Anyway, that's the talk. Thanks a lot, guys.